Mystifying UFO cases. Gentlemen, welcome to Reactions with TommyKay. Shout out to Lamino. This is what we're watching. Check him out. I've seen Oversimplified. Yes. Let's go. Lamino.
It looked like a silver saucer. Was exactly what it looked like. It was like no higher than 100.
First of all, I don't believe in UFOs. I don't believe in them. I think that UFOs can always be traced back to foreign military equipment, private people equipment, mistakes. You have to explain every single one though. Okay. Scaring me. And why are all the UFOs in fucking America all the time? Also, talk about UFOs. One of my favorite movies ever, Science. You know Science with Mel Gibson? People shit on that movie. I think that movie was insanely good. That movie was so good, bro.
Outer space, because all I could see was stars. He said it looked like planets.
It was illuminating the clouds, and that's about what it looked like. It was white.
This bright light. It's something that looked like a saucer or some unidentified.
Like, who in chat has legit seen a UFO in their life?
Jumping up in the sky and doing all kinds of kind of tricks, and it was too fast.
Yeah, I shouldn't have asked.
It wasn't a helicopter, and it wasn't
Me and
anything that
GTA.
we had ever seen.
I've never paid much attention to UFO sightings. I've read about the occasional incident, but my curiosity has never really expanded beyond those few cases. I just find that far too often the focus of UFO stories is on the mystery itself, as opposed to the resolution of that mystery. Plausible explanations take a backseat to fantastical embellishments. There's a documentary on Netflix right now, and I'm using the term documentary very loosely, about a man who claims to be harassed and pursued by aliens. In one scene, he literally has someone bob one of those alien masks you'd get for Halloween outside a window, and it is played completely straight.
Oh my god, what the fuck is that?
That's when you're a parent. But when you are a parent and your child is playing World of Warcraft all night. Have you seen Timmy? I haven't seen her in weeks, and then little Timmy's like, "Oh, is there dinner? I just killed Ragnar's mom."
Holy shit. Oh my god, what's it doing? Holy shit.
Dude, you know what's sad though? Like, all jokes aside, thank you, Master. People believe in this. People watch this and they're like, whoa, I gotta go to my WhatsApp group and tell them. That is the sad part.
We, the audience, are supposed to believe that this is a close encounter of the third kind, when it looks like a close encounter of the trick-or-treat kind. Nevertheless, this documentary did pique my interest, and so I began to learn more about the UFO phenomenon, immersing myself in this expansive mythos of which I only had a very limited understanding. From the very start, I was taken down this convoluted path of alien abductions.
Do you remember though, when you were a kid and you believed in this stuff? Do you guys remember that? I remember when I was like 12. There was a night, I remember that. My family will troll me. They will be like, "Look at these videos, they're coming." And I was like, "Whoa, fuck, oh my god!"
Government conspiracies and alien experiments that read like rejected drafts of the X-Files. But every now and again, I came across something a bit more credible. Stories that were genuinely difficult to rationalize. Nothing that would convince me the Earth is a galactic resort, but mystifying stories all the same. To get you on the same page as me, we need to go back to the year 1947.
You would think that now that everyone has cell phones, you would get way more sightings than UFOs.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, I think UFOs are dumb shit. Obviously, UFO means unidentified flying object, which could be balloons, drones nowadays, stuff like that.
Government agencies
I
across
genuinely
North
don't believe in
America
this.
were flooded with
I feel like if an alien race has a certain level of technology, they have different ways to look at us, you know?
reports of strange objects in the sky. This UFO mania was provoked by a pilot named Kenneth Arnold. On June the 24th, Arnold was flying over the Cascade Mountains in the state of Washington when he observed a formation of 9 saucer-like objects zooming across the sky. Unbeknownst to Arnold, this innocent description would come to popularize the term flying saucer. The scintillating discoids appear to be traveling at a speed of some 2,000 kilometers per hour, a speed yet to be achieved by any man-made airplane in 1947. Arnold initially...
even if it's... I'm no expert. Even if it's true, it must be some kind of optical illusion or something, right? Fata Morgana effect or some shit.
Secret military test flight, but the US Air Force quickly denied responsibility and merely dismissed the sighting as some form of optical illusion. But it wasn't quite that simple. Not only was Arnold an experienced pilot...
Dude, can you guys explain me the Twitch meta? Isn't there a thing now that is like watch parties? I would love to watch Science with Chat one day. I fucking love that movie. I love that movie, man. I remember Science, dude. That was a different time. I remember I was in the cinema with my aunt and my mom. And when the alien was crossing at the Mexican children party, the whole cinema was screaming. Because back then, people weren't used to horror movies, right? It was a different time. And people would scream in the cinema like crazy when that alien came by, man. Nowadays, no one cares, right? But it was in Brazil. Fuck cares. But that shit was...
But his story was corroborated by a number of witnesses on the ground who all described a series of oval-shaped objects traveling at a tremendous rate of speed. Furthermore, other sightings had been reported days before and would continue for many days after. More than 800 cases in less than a month, including the famous Roswell incident. Publicly, the US Air Force dismissed the sightings as nothing more than a combination of overactive imaginations and misperceptions of natural phenomena. But internally, the Air Force was just as mystified as the public and actually quite concerned.
I got that AK. Nice shit.
Hundreds of unrelated persons from all walks of life, including high-ranking military officials, scientists,
like
engineers, politicians, and professional pilots, reported uncannily similar experiences in the span of a few weeks. Both the public...
Dude, what if they actually is UFOs and they fucking know, but they're not telling us? Imagine you're a high-ranking officer and you know UFOs are real. Would you tell the public? No, because they would fucking go insane, right? They would mass suicide, plunder, pillage, all that shit.
And the intelligence community grew increasingly convinced that something was hiding amongst the clouds.
They are releasing the footage. The footage you're talking about is just showing unidentifying objects. It doesn't mean it's aliens. You have to distinguish between aliens and fucking UFOs. UFOs can be man-made or nature-made.
In late June of 1947, the Air Force covertly launched a preliminary investigation into the sightings, as they suspected that some UFOs could be vessels of foreign or celestial origin. By late September, the existence of advanced aeronautic vehicles could not be eliminated, while the majority of cases could be ascribed to natural.
Another thing though, I think we reached a point on Earth. I always talk about this. They could release a paper right now that proves aliens are real. It will go so under. The only way the public of Earth would get it if it's the media pushes into their face. Like, we reached a point on Earth, you could literally share crazy information, like aliens are real, 9/11 was an inside job, whatever. No one will care, you have to put it into their face completely everywhere.
Natural phenomena, the maneuverability and evasive behavior displayed by some UFOs defied all conventional explanations. It was speculated that these seemingly mechanical UFOs could be part of some top-secret military project, either foreign or domestic. It was feared that the Soviet Union had seized German technology after World War II and developed some advanced aircraft capable of covert infiltration of US airspace. This led to the formation of Project Sign, a classified investigation that would attempt to determine whether or not UFOs posed a threat to national security. While the project members entertained a number of plausible causes, by the summer of 1948, a minority of credible and well-documented UFO cases could not be resolved. These cases became known as the unknowns. By process of elimination, Project Sign therefore concluded that the most probable explanation for the most inexplicable of cases was the extraterrestrial hypothesis.
Jesus.
In other words, the unknowns did not appear to be from this Earth. However, once this report reached the Pentagon, it was rejected. The interplanetary explanation was thought to be unsubstantiated, and so the report was ultimately scrapped. Project Sign was dissolved soon thereafter, and subsequent investigations ultimately failed to ascertain the nature of these unknowns. Project Sign's successor, Project Blue Book, merely concluded that it was statistically improbable that UFOs represented technological capabilities beyond our own, as the vast majority of UFO sightings are misperceptions of natural phenomena.
But when they do that study, do they talk about what they hear about the UFOs, or did they actually have real footage of them moving?
The presumption was that all UFO sightings were likely to be misperceptions.
I'm starting to believe,
funding for UFO research could no longer be justified as the threat to national security.
Yeah, I remember. Didn't Trump release UFO files and no one gave a fuck? I've seen that shit.
Was evidently non-existent.
Real videos
Government-sanctioned
of
UFO research officially ended with the dissolution of Project Blue Book in 1969, and the Air Force has since proclaimed the issue resolved.
Depending
Out of the 12,618 UFO reports in its collection, 701 were marked unknown upon its conclusion, although some would argue that many cases were mischaracterized and that more than 1,700 cases should be regarded as unknowns. While the US government may dismiss these unknowns as mere statistical anomalies, the fundamental question remains: what did people see? What kind of natural phenomenon evades resolution despite decades of
Corridor
scrutiny?
Digital debunked these sightings.
Late in the afternoon on May the 24th, 1949, 6 civilians were on a fishing trip on the Rogue River in the state of Oregon. Suddenly, one of them observed a round and scintillating object in the sky. It barely moved as it silently hovered some 1,500 meters above.
What's scary about UFO sightings is that they kind of all say the same. It's like these flat things that stand still and then they're gone really fast.
It was difficult to discern any details with the naked eye, but fortunately one of them had brought a pair of binoculars with 8 times magnification.
What the binoculars It's a fucking Dusty. It's a Chinese dust robot. They're fucking testing them.
Revealed a clearly distinguishable metallic craft of unfamiliar design. It was round and flat, about 10 meters.
Yeah, imagine you literally see this in real life and just nobody believes you.
In diameter and had a rounded fin on the roof. It had a reflective silver-colored surface that appeared to be somewhat dirty. It lacked any conventional means of propulsion and made absolutely no sound. After some 2 minutes of observation, the UFO gradually moved in the opposite direction of the wind until it disappeared with the speed of a jet plane. Besides the corroborating accounts and detailed sketches, what makes this case so interesting is that 2 of the civilian observers were also employed at an aeronautical research facility, so they had ample knowledge of aeronautics.
You have to always think, are these people retards? Are they crazy motherfuckers that are like, Corona isn't real? Or are they actually people that are reasonable people that you should listen to?
Furthermore, the story never reached the public.
Because if they are reasonable people, then it gets a bit weird.
If this was a hoax, one would expect the hoaxers to seek media attention, yet the witnesses refrained from speaking to the press. The story never reached the public eye until many years later when ufologists uncovered the case files, which revealed that Project Blue Book had rather dismissively concluded it must have been a misidentified airplane or weather balloon. So all we need now is a plane shaped like a pancake or a self-propelled balloon unaffected by wind.
Thank you, Dwight.
For some reason, every time I see a UFO...
Items on display include the latest in meteorological devices. The weather balloon is equipped with a radio sound which permits measurement of atmospheric
maybe they were testing a lot of nukes and shit.
And pressure
and so they were like, yeah, there's UFOs, don't care about our nukes, or something like that.
If you spend some time reading about
UFOs,
you will soon come across an explanation that is repeated time and time again. Weather balloons. The Battle of Los Angeles,
the
balloon.
more video cameras are available to human race, the less UFOs are sighted.
The Mantell incident, once again, a balloon. Unfortunately for proponents of the extraterrestrial hypothesis, it is often a rather convincing explanation. However, it is far less convincing when the witnesses of a UFO are themselves launching a balloon. On April the 24th, 1949, a group of 5 balloonists had just launched a weather balloon in the New Mexico desert and were tracking said balloon with a special telescope. Suddenly, the person operating the telescope sighted another object in the sky and alerted the rest of the group, who could all see the UFO with the naked eye. It had an elliptical shape and was white, silver, and yellowish in color. It was impossible to accurately determine its altitude and size due to the lack of reference points, but it appeared to be flying at an extremely high altitude and moved so quickly across the sky it was difficult to track with a telescope. It remained visible for about a minute until it suddenly stopped
The thing is, this is all hearsay, right? It's all
and disappeared
blah, blah.
by near vertical ascension into the clear blue sky. It made no sound and traveled crosswind. A year prior, a very similar incident had taken place on the 5th of April. 3 balloonists in the New Mexico desert were observing a weather balloon when they spotted a UFO moving at a very high rate of speed. It had a round shape and was white, gray, and goldish in color. It flew erratically across the sky and performed vertical loops for about 30 seconds until it disappeared.
Only
The
appear in the
desert
USA.
was completely silent,
That's where the men in
yet
black
the
are.
UFO violently maneuvered without making a sound. Then on January the 16th, 1951, 2 balloonists and a number of pilots and civilians in the New Mexico
movie I
desert
thought is
observed
really
2
fucking good? People don't say that often. I think War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. That is a good fucking movie, man. That movie is horrifying. Like, you were just running away from these fucking robots. I thought that was a great movie, man. That's a scary fucking
in the
movie,
vicinity
dude.
of the balloon they were observing. The balloon had reached an altitude of 35 kilometers, and even though it was about 30 meters in diameter, the 2 UFOs were about 3 to 5 times larger and appeared to be
I've seen
flying
Arrival.
above
That's when
the balloon.
it's about the language,
They had
right?
an elliptical shape and were white and gray in color. They orbited the balloon for about 40 seconds until they disappeared into the distance.
Yeah,
at
this
a
is all just
terrific
hearsay,
rate of
though.
speed.
I can listen to this.
And these
if you
are
have
just
no real
3
proof, then it's
examples
all.
of many
I
similar
fucked
cases,
Godzilla's mom
and
yesterday,
despite
bro.
the fact that the spectators involved could not have been more qualified to identify aerial phenomena, none could explain what they had seen. Just before midnight on July the 19th, 1952, radar scopes in and around Washington D.C. picked up a cluster of 5 to 10 unidentified targets. There were no scheduled flights in the area, and the UFOs did not adhere to any established flight paths. The possibility of a malfunction was quickly eliminated as radar scopes at 3 separate airports displayed the same unidentifiable target. Eventually, the objects could be visually confirmed as orbs of light slowly moving across the sky. After a while, the objects began to fan out, zooming across the night sky of Washington, D.C.
My nickname in Dota 2 for 10 years was Night Sky.
Flew above the White House, the Capitol building, and many other restricted areas in a disorganized and unpredictable fashion.
Bullshit,
On numerous occasions, the UFOs performed sharp 90-degree turns, and some would completely reverse course in a matter of seconds. Radar operators were baffled. No man-made aircraft could perform such maneuvers. Air traffic controllers, radar operators, pilots, military personnel, and countless civilians all reported sightings of UFOs. One pilot remained in close proximity to the UFOs for about 14 minutes, describing them as white lights with no recognizable shape. While some lights flew in parallel to the plane, others appeared to be flying outside the Earth's atmosphere.
Why are there no recent reports?
The sightings by the pilot also coincided with a radar detection, suggesting that these were indeed physical flying objects as opposed to radar misidentifications of some kind. After more than 3 hours, 2 jet fighters were dispatched to intercept the UFOs. But moments before they arrived, the objects accelerated to speeds in excess of 10,000 kilometers per hour and disappeared out of sight. However, when the jets returned to refuel...
So why didn't 10,000 people see this? Shouldn't, like, the whole population of Washington be like, whoa, what the fuck? No, it's... Is that happening? That 100,000 people say, I've seen it too. When 100,000 people are like, I've seen it.
UFOs returned to the skies.
What did the people say?
Some 5 hours after initial detection, the last UFO vanished from the radar scopes.
They did? Did they?
But a week later,
the
UFOs returned once more. On the evening of July the 26th, numerous UFOs were observed streaking across the skies above and around Washington, D.C. They shared many similarities with the UFOs from the week before, appearing as orbs of light capable of extreme supersonic velocities. The crew and passengers of some commercial flights could once again visually confirm the existence of many of the UFOs detected by radar. 4 jets were dispatched during the night, and 2 of the pilots did see something on 2 separate occasions. One pilot saw 4 white lights while the other saw a single white light. However, neither came close enough to make an accurate identification, as the jets were easily outmaneuvered by the UFOs. Under mounting pressure from the public to explain this apparent invasion of the US Capitol, the Air Force held a press conference on July the 29th.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers. The Air Force interest in this problem has been due to our feeling of an obligation to identify and analyze to the best of our ability anything in the air that may have the possibility of threat or menace to the United States.
Thank you, Tiger, for 1 year, man. Thank you.
However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things.
Hey, YouTube,
it is this group of observations that we now are attempting to resolve. We can say that the recent sightings are
Neil Armstrong reported white lights coming in and out of the moon when they left. Shut up! Your mom reported that her son is weird. You show me a fucking link of that. You're talking about, bro.
With any secret
there's like coming out of your fucking nose,
by any department of the United States.
Bullshit.
At the conference, they claimed that temperature inversions were to blame. It's an atmospheric condition in which layers of warm air traps pockets of cold air, which can result in false returns on a radar scope.
It's done by space
Conversely,
radiation.
the visual sightings were supposedly misperceptions of stars, meteors, or strange reflections of natural sources of light.
Zuckerberg is kind
in
of
other words, it was all just a big misunderstanding,
like
and there was no cause for alarm. It's a very odd explanation, given that it completely disregards crucial pieces of information. For one thing, visual observations and radar detections were confirmed to be one and the same on numerous occasions. When pilots claimed they had visual contact with a UFO, ground personnel confirmed its existence and location on the radar scope. When pilots claimed a UFO disappeared, it simultaneously disappeared from the radar scopes. Another glaring issue is that temperature inversions occurred on a daily basis throughout the summer of 1952, yet unidentified radar targets only appeared on the 2 nights in question. Personnel at Andrews Air Force Base were not quite sure as to what they had seen, claiming they may have seen meteors or other natural phenomena.
We're stopping. This might have happened, blah blah blah.